shamayim v'aretz. Ha'itin lamod raglecha. Ayanum shomrecha. Hine lo yanum velo ishan. Shomer Yisrael. Adonai shomrecha. Adonai tzilcha yad yeminecha. Adonai shomrecha. Adonai tzilcha yad yeminecha. Yomam hashemesh lo yakeka ve'yareach v'layla. Adonai yishmorcha mikora. Yishmor et nafshecha. Adonai yishmor tzedcha uvoecha ve'ata ve'ad olam. Adonai yishmor tzedcha uvoecha ve'ata ve'ad olam. HaMekomo Shalom. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Thank you to everyone who has tuned into the broadcast of the service if you can't be with us here at the Shaarey Zedek Cemetery. As we gather today, family, friends, and a community to honor Hart Chisick. In keeping with Jewish tradition, we begin this service with the chanting and translation, the recitation of a psalm. This is Psalm 121, known in Hebrew as Shir Lama'alot, a song for ascending. I turn my eyes to the mountains, from where will my help come? My help comes from Adonai, from God, maker of heaven and earth. God will not let your foot give way, your guardian will not slumber. You see, the guardian of Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps. God is your guardian, your protection at your right hand. By day the sun will not strike you, nor the moon by night. God will guard you from all harm. God will guard your life. God will guard your going and coming now and forever. May Hart Chisick go unto God in peace. Hatzur tamim palo ki chol bracha mishpat el emunah ve'nav el tzadik v'yashar hu Tzadik ata Adonai la'amidu lahachayot, asher b'yadcha b'gadon kol ruchot, chalil lecha zichronenu limchot, v'yihiyu na'inech v'rachamim aleinu v'kuchot, ki ilcha Adon harachamim v'haslichot. Adonai natan v'Adonai lakach, yehi shem Adonai mevorach. Vehu rachum yechaper avon v'lo yashchit, v'hirba l'ashiv apo v'lo yirkol chamato, v'yashov he'afar al haaretz shaya, ve'aruach tashuv el ha'elohim asher netana. The dust returns to the earth as it was, but the spirit returns to God who gave it. May heart, soul be bound up in the bond of life eternal, and may God send comfort to those who mourn and grant strength to those whose burden is sorrow. He was known to some people as Hartley, to most he was known as Hart. His Jewish name is Yisrael ben Mordechai v'Tamara, honoring his parents, the son of Tamara and Max Chisick, Zichronam Livracha, of blessed memory. Hart passed away on Wednesday, the 22nd day in the Hebrew month of Tevet. He was 77. He is survived by his family, his brother Mark and sister-in-law Hadera, his daughter Becky and granddaughter Lily, his partner of the last 23 years, Betty, his stepson Andrew, daughter-in-law Jennifer, and grandson Cooper. Hart grew up in the North End of the 1950s and 1960s. The Chisick family lived not far from here on Rupert's Land, east of Maine. He was Tamara and Max's first kid. It was from a neighbor down the street that Hart first got a taste for fishing and for hunting. Two interests that quickly developed into defining passions throughout his life, and became a gateway to a world of the outdoors that he not only loved, but in which he truly excelled. Most people who knew Hart, especially back then, probably knew about his legendary black bearskin rug, or knew of his prowess as an angler. Sponsored tackles, rods, boats, all provided, the subject of magazine articles and TV shows. It's not a surprise that Becky grew up thinking her dad was a professional fisherman. He basically was. As Mark said when we met as a family just last night, if there were 100 people fishing in a lake and just one fish in the lake, Hart Chisick would catch that fish. A natural. I couldn't believe he was Jewish. He had a passion, though, and it was a passion he shared with all he could, except for his brother Mark, who really never quite caught on as an angler himself. Hart went to Seven Oaks and Edmund Partridge and got his Jewish education in his youth from Rosh Pina, the after-school and Sunday school classes. For high school, he went to West Kildon Collegiate, all the while developing a well-earned reputation for, let's call it, toughness and strength. He was known as someone with whom one shouldn't mess. Maybe he was tough with some people, but he certainly loved animals. There was the famous puppy, part wolf, part coyote, that he found while hunting, Chimo, whom he brought home and became a truly beloved family pet. Not the first animal Hart brought home from the wild. In his youth, there was a time he brought home a fox, and of course, a boa constrictor. Don't ask. I asked, I didn't find out anything more. Don't ask. What I did learn was that snake wasn't around that long. It was around long enough to one day attack the Chisick family schnauzer, which Hart dealt with a hammer. But he was around long enough to make an impression. As another one of Hart Chisick's wild, believe-it-or-not style stories. As Jennifer recalled, he would tell these same stories over and over and over again over the last 24 years. He thought they were hilarious, that he was hilarious, but you were always left wondering, was that real? Was any of that real? What is real is that in his early 20s, Hart Chisick showed his love for Israel, a big part of his own Jewish identity, when he went to Israel after the Six-Day War, hoping to serve in the IDF. When that didn't pan out, he spent time living on a kibbutz. Back in Winnipeg a few years later, he became a dad when Becky was born. She will share her words on her dad in her eulogy. And we will also hear from Lily, Becky's daughter and Hart's granddaughter, her perspective and words of tribute as well. I can share that it was 23 years ago, in his early 50s, when Hart had a profound change in his life, when he met Betty at a house party hosted by mutual friends of theirs. Not wanting to rush, he called her up about 3 months later. But it wasn't long before Hart was calling Becky, and somewhat nervously inviting her to what felt like a very important lunch at the falafel place to, quote, meet someone. Becky's review after that lunch, finally a nice one. It's true. Betty Dominowski changed Hart Chisick's life. To her, he was sincere, kind, patient, and a stubborn pain in the ass. Their kitchen arguments were legendary, both for volume and for absurdity, often arguing over how to boil a pot of water, Hart always seemingly in the way. But their bond, over the last nearly quarter of a century, was beautiful, heartwarming, touching, and special to both of them and their blended family. Betty encouraged Hart to reopen relationships from his own past with his own family, to reconnect with them, which he did. And with her son Andrew, he developed a special bond that they both cherished, a bond that started with fishing and hunting. Hart got Andrew his first rod and his first rifle and the scar on his forehead that he still has from the first time he used the first rifle. Over a period of 5 years, shortly after they came into each other's lives, Hart and Andrew shared the same odd days off, always Tuesdays and Wednesdays, and they spent them all together, often hitting the highway and driving somewhere outside the city for yet another outdoorsy adventure. As Andrew says, they became buddies. He never tried to be his dad, but I think as time wore on, Andrew was considered by Hart to be his soft son. He was also able to share some of those same interests with Cooper, his grandson, and make more memories over another generation. Just as he had with Lily, Hart truly loved the role of being a grandpa. His cancer diagnosis that came over this summer was difficult, but throughout, really until the very end, especially in the way he looked, he remained strong and tough. I was told throughout his life, Hart admitted he wasn't afraid to die. At least he would make jokes. Well, I'll see you next year if I make it to next year. To me, sounds like someone who at the very least tried to appreciate what he had and what could end very quickly. This strength, and his youthful strength, reminds me of Samson, a prophet, the Jewish prophet, the biblical figure most connected with strength, physical strength, someone who also got in lots of fights, had tremendous passion that often got the best of him, hard to control, got him in trouble. The takeaway I had from learning about Hart Chisick, whom I'm sad to say I never had the opportunity to meet, was that throughout his life he was gifted with second chances and did make the most of them. Whether it was Betty, or Andrew, or Becky, becoming a grandpa, reconnecting with family. The great lesson of Samson in the Bible, at least in my humble opinion, is that though he was tragically flawed, with his dying action, with his final move, he sought redemption, tried to live for others, tried to make it right, even if he was going to fall short. At least he tried. He still proved and still strove that being a good person is within reach, that repair and redemption, the will to do better, are always within our grasp if we want them. I believe Hart Chisick did that in his life too. Jewish wisdom holds that death is better than a life of pain, and eternal rest is better than a constant sickness. It is our hope and prayer that Hart's suffering is over, and that he is at peace. May he rest in peace. Becky.
Thanks everybody for being here. I'm going to do my best to get through this. So Lily can't be here today, but she felt it was very important to write something, to tell you how she's been dealing with this and how she feels about her grandpa. To sum up my grandpa in one word, he was a grumpy man. His grumpiness was his attitude of love in which he expressed for family, friends, and of course, his hockey games. Leading up to this day, I got to hear a side of him I never truly got to experience in our relationship, vulnerability. I've always known his love for me, but never felt it as intensely as I did when we said our goodbyes. Since then, I've been stuck feeling guilty because I fear he's leaving me without understanding the true extent of my love for him, and regretful for the times I spent with him paying more attention to my phone than his presence and his stupid fart jokes. I've heard the saying, we don't truly appreciate what we have until it's gone, but I've never felt as connected to that as I do now. My grandpa was never one for compromises, as his stubbornness and uncensored mouth took the best of him sometimes. These qualities aside, he was the most resilient person I had in my life, persevering fearlessly through many life-threatening moments, and coming out the other side just as humorous and independent. His humor was definitely a strong contribution to his character, which I greatly admired. He could make jokes at moments like at dinner, but also moments like after the family came back from Mexico where Grandpa had a heart attack on the airplane. Later, he expressed how funny the whole situation seemed to be to him. He definitely knew how to put himself in the center spotlight. My younger self, she's 17, definitely appreciates the many steak dinners he prepared, although not so much the graphic hunting stories that may have accompanied the meal. I remember one spring when he showed me a spot in his garden where a couple little bunnies were nesting together, and then he told me he was planning on having them for dinner. He made many jokes like this, some true, and some just he used to play bizarre pranks on me. Though many of his hunting stories scared me, I wish he could have taught me more about his passion and really had more time for him to do so. He found a lot of passion in hunting, and I know now how he felt more for family. Reflecting on our moments together, I haven't yet accepted that memories are all I have now to preserve my connection to him. I feel fearful at times that I could one day forget the sound of his voice and the humor in him that made his character so memorable. Underneath my grief and fear of losing him, I know it's impossible to forget someone as strong and opinionated as Grandpa. He left with the same courage and dignity he's always had, not letting death strip him of his last living moments with those he loved. Today I say my final goodbye to a man that showed me a great deal of love and care throughout my life. With the regret and loss I carry, I'm pushing through to show him the same. I'll always feel thankful for the vulnerability he expressed during our last conversations together. I felt years' worth of affection in 20 minutes. It's important to remember his strong qualities of being courageous, comical, resilient, and protective, because however powerless he appeared at the end, inside he remained strong. I can now recognize my own traits that my grandpa has influenced, forever letting these pieces of him live on within me. Grandpa, please find peace and comfort. Hang out with Papa. I'm always loving you and missing you. So my words don't sound as good after that, but I'll give you a few. Last week, I asked my dad what he wanted me to say. So he told me to say he was a good guy. I smirked and I reminded him that not everybody will agree with that. He put up his fists and he says, well, you know what they get. If you knew Dad or lived in the North End in the 50s and 60s, you may be aware of my father's reputation. He was a strong guy that may have gotten into a fight or two in his prime. Dad was proud to tell these types of stories, and when I asked him if there were any specific stories that I should share, he replied with, nope, they're all bullshit anyways. But then he thought of one. Hang on a second. The time I taught my brother Mark how to swim. Now you might think to yourself, well, I didn't know Hart was a swim instructor. Well, the story is short and sweet. He pushed the 3-year-old Mark into the water, and yeah, Mark can swim. I guess we could have all saved a few bucks in swimming lessons if we had my dad's talent. And just so everybody knows, he later told Mark that had he not come up for air, he would have saved him. As a Chisick, Dad had always been known for his years in the scrap business. His true joys were fishing and hunting. I remember numerous weekend fishing trips with Dad when I was little. I felt very important to be the only kid in first grade that had their own fishing gear. Later in life, he started fishing with Andrew and later taking his grandchildren Lily and Cooper out with him. It gave him great joy to teach them to fish and later teach Cooper how to hunt. After his diagnosis, his wish was to be able to go hunting with Andrew and Cooper just one more time, and fortunately he was able to do that. Dad married my mom in 1970. Me and our dog Chimo were the good things that came from that time in his life. He had many other relationships after that, but got luckiest later in life when he met Betty. He spent 23 years driving her up the wall, and she still stuck around. We're all very lucky to have a loving, blended family. My dad was a sports fan, more specifically a Winnipeg Jets and Blue Bombers fan. Dad and I bonded over our love for hockey and had long conversations discussing all the Jets players and the coaching. He didn't like to miss a game on TV and would call me frazzled when he couldn't find the channel. He always made sure to shout True North during the anthem from his chair in the living room. I'll miss his pre-game calls addressing me as coach when he asked me what the plan was for today's game. I'd like to thank everybody for your support during Dad's short illness. The calls, the messages, the visits, and just being here is so much appreciated. And a special thank you to the doctors and wonderful nursing staff on the 8th floor at the St. Boniface Hospital. Thank you for having televisions in every room so Dad never missed a Jets game. We'll keep up the True North for you, Dad.
Thank you, Becky. Your eulogy was beautiful, and thank you to Lily for reading her words, which were tremendous and heartfelt as well. It's now my honor to chant the El Malei Rachamim, the traditional Jewish memorial prayer for Hart Chisick. Yisrael ben Mordechai v'Tamar. El Malei Rachamim, Shochein Bameromim, Hamtzei Menucha Nechona Tachat Kanfei Hashchina, B'malot Kedoshim Uteorim, Kezohar Arakim Mazirim, et nishmat Yisrael ben Mordechai v'Tamara shelach leolamo began eiden de menuchato anabal harachamim Hasirei v'sei tegen avecha leolamim utzror b'tzror achayim achayim et nishmato Adonai hu nachalato v'yanuach v'shalom al mishkavo Omar. Amen. Exalted, compassionate God, Grant infinite rest in your sheltering presence among the holy and the pure to the soul of Chisick, who has gone to his eternal home. Merciful One, we ask that he find perfect peace in your eternal embrace. May his soul be bound up in the bond of life. May he rest in peace. And let us say Amen. Thank you again to everyone who has tuned in, and to those of you who are here with us at the cemetery. In a moment we will recite the words of the mourner's Kaddish, and then we will conclude our service led by the family by shoveling earth into the grave. Everyone is invited to participate in this ritual, this mitzvah, a selfless act we do without any hope of any reward to someone who meant so much to many people. Jewish tradition holds that the ultimate form of respect is to honor someone and accompany him to his final resting place. By being here, by participating in this ritual, we can do this. We can take care of our loved one until the very end. We believe our loved ones deserve to be buried by our own hands. And so the family will lead us, and again, everyone is invited. We know it can be a painful act, but we remind ourselves it's an act born of love and compassion. There are different customs in different Jewish cemeteries around the world when it comes to the shoveling. Most people pour 3 shovelfuls of earth. Some people use the front of the shovel, some people use the back of the shovel. Some people will pass the shovel to the next person in line, or others, as if reluctant to pass on a burden, will return the shovel to the earth. Whatever the custom with which you are familiar, or the custom that resonates with you, is what you should embrace to infuse meaning into this ritual. If you want to participate but you're leery about using one of the big shovels, you may not be able to see it, but where I'm pointing here in front of the pile of earth, there is a pail. Inside there is a small shovel and sand, and you can use that as well. And there are enough shovels that after people can line up on both sides. We always just say that during the winter, just be mindful. It's icy and slippery around the gravesite, so be careful and tread softly. Earlier in the service, we offered the words of Job, the epitome of suffering in Jewish tradition. These words are, again in conclusion, Adonai natan v'Adonai lakach, Yehi Shem Adonai mevorach. God you have given, God you have taken away, blessed be the name of God. May the memory of Chisick be a blessing, as we mark that his essence will never leave our hearts and souls. The mourner's Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shemei Rabah, be'alma divra chirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chayei dechol beit Yisrael, ba'agala uv'izman kariv v'imru Amen. Yehei shmei Rabah mevorach le'alam u'lalmei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yitaleh v'yithalal shemei dekudsha barichu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata da'amiran be'alma v'imru Amen. Yehei shlama Rabah min shemaya. V'chaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru Amen. Oseh shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom. Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru Amen. May the one who creates peace and harmony on high bring peace and harmony to us, to all Israel, and to all humanity, as again together we say Amen. Just wanted to mention before I forget, after the service, there will be a meal of consolation at the Gwen sector. What's the full title? Creative Living Center, 1588 Main. 1588 Main Gwen sector for a meal of consolation after, continuing to tell stories and starting to turn our attention to consoling the mourners. In keeping with that, we offer to the family these words of tradition. Hamakom yinachem etchem betoch sha'ara ve'leit Zion v'Yerushalayim. May you be comforted and consoled. May God comfort and console you among all those who are or who have ever been in mourning in our community. Thank you again to everyone. I invite the family to come forward. Oh, right. And also, there will be kind of a night of Shiva, kind of sort of a gathering, not a formal Shiva, but anyone who wants to pay their respect and visit the family at Mark and Hedera's home, 637 Park Boulevard East, this evening, 7 to 9. You can attend that as well, and again, the meal immediately following. What we took only was I had to get them live cards, like live mice. My Graveside. She cut everyone out. She was my Graveside. After that. She had a profound something. She was fun and artistic, and she brought a lot. I won a literary award in grade 5. I went on journals now doing all kinds of things. I haven't heard what she was talking about, but I did want to tell you that that time she was so anyway, it's all true.
And then when you texted me and said, before one, I'm